Welcome to the Junior Golf Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping parents and juniors navigate through the journey of junior golf. From fitness to mental coaching, we cover it all on this podcast. Here's your host, Ro Thompson.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Junior Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Ro Thompson. Man, I tell you, we got a special guest in the building today, and it's none other than Robert Price of Elite Minds. And man, I hope y'all are ready for what he's going to tell y'all today, because I feel, Rob, that this is the missing piece when it comes to junior golf. And typically, people don't want to put that extra money into it. But yo, without any further delay, I want to bring up my co-host, Robert Price. What's going on, Rob?
Nothing much. Good to see you, Ro. Thanks for having me on the Junior Golf Podcast. I'm excited about sharing with parents and players, like you mentioned, the missing piece, why this is so important. You know, we could talk about this. Obviously, this is what I do for a living, but we could talk about that missing piece around a lot of areas in our lives. So I'm excited about the opportunity.
Yes, man. Well, thank you for agreeing to being on. You know, you and I, we talk from time to time, and you know, we share some very similar experiences. So I know a lot of times, you know, you be wanting to give me that mental part of it, which I know is going to help, you know, my son, and of course, it's going to help Haven as well. But before we get into all the mental coaching and all the performance and mindset stuff, give us a little background about yourself.
Sure. Super simple. So I've actually been at this for, it's always scary to say now that we're getting plus this, but since 2000, so 23 years, so a couple of decades in this space.
Okay.
I started in 2000, actually as a grad student at University of Maryland. Literally my story is long but short at the same time. So I was literally sitting in class. One of my professors saw me doodling, and he said, "Man, that's a good name. You should go and figure out what to do with it." So it was Elite Minds way long ago. And so I literally left class and kind of figured out how do I do this? How do I get a name, and what do I do with this business? And he you know, he kind of walked me through some of that. So my first job literally was in grad school as a mental performance coach at a junior tennis facility where kids would basically board and house. And I would basically come over there every day and work with those kids around this system now that I have, but creating the system along the way around how to actually build this champion mindset for athletes. So that's a little taste, but I'm going to go back just for a quick second too.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. So for those of you Ohioans that are out there, that's what's up. They may not like me when I say my first experience in college, actually. Watching a college sport was Michigan, so they became a fan right away. So my daughter and I celebrated a national championship, which was amazing. I know we're not supposed to like co-celebrate with things that aren't really ours. I'm celebrating this, just so
Right.
y'all know.
Right.
That's good. It's okay to be a fan. But then when I left Toledo, I actually went to University of Pittsburgh to play football.
Okay.
I played there for 2 seasons, and then I ended up transferring down to Hampton University, so one of the HBCUs, HBCU Love. And at that time, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to know that when I grew up, I did not have the transfer portal. Man, I wish I had that thing. Wow.
You would have been moving. You'd have been moving and grooving.
That would have been fantastic. But I chose Hampton because at that time you were going from Division 1A to Division 1 AA.
Right.
Bowl, now call it bowl subdivision. And so you're able to do that and then play immediately. So that's exactly what I did. And so that way I could just continue that journey that I was having. So that's a little bit on my sports space and a little bit of school space. And I'm sure I'll bring up some of those other fancy schools that I went to along the way. But that's a little taste. But just been at this, man, for a minute. 23 years is a long time at doing anything.
Yes.
So that's a minute. I've been married for 20 years, so I'm getting, there it is. So I'm just now learning about this business, and I'm just now learning about being married. All of this, it's all happening at the same time. Took me
Experience,
20 years.
experience. That's what they
Experience.
call
Exactly.
experience. Well,
Yes.
listen, man. So what led you into the mental coaching piece? Or, some people call it mental performance, mental coaching. What do you like to call it? And what led you into that field?
That's a great question. I'll go academia for a second.
Okay.
Okay. I think that'll actually help our listeners. So, um, sports psychology, that's the umbrella of this.
Okay.
Uh, the word psychologist or psychology is a protected word. And so I share this from an academic and because I'm in the field and there's a lot of other things that go along with this. So technically, to be called a sports psychologist, you must be a licensed psychologist. That's it.
Okay.
You specialize in sport. So that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody who says they're a sports psychologist actually specializes in sport and knows kind of what I call it, knows what they're doing.
Right.
Uh, you could be a psychologist and say, I've worked with a few athletes, and so I'm going to be a sports psychologist, or I can add that to my title. They're allowed to do that because psychology is a protected term.
Okay.
Now, this again is that evolution of time and experience. And so when I was in school at University of Maryland in grad school, I was in basically a kinesiology master's program with a specialization in sports psych.
Oh yeah.
That's what it
You deep with
uh,
it.
deep.
Yeah.
So I get and I understand. And then other, it's an interdisciplinary sport. So I just uh space. So I like to be called, because it's the legal way to be, I learned a long and hard way on some of this, is that I am a mental performance coach.
There you
That's
go.
what I do. It's mental performance coaching
Mhm.
is what's happening. We use sport psychology principles and techniques. That's what we do. That's where if you are worth your salt. So if you're coming from that space, um, that's how it sounds. So it does sometimes get confusing to folks. And then it adds a little more murky when we talk about mental health and sport, and how does that work, and can I work with an athlete around their mental health issues and their sport performance issues.
Mhm.
Fortunately for me, I have a license as a licensed therapist, so I can do that
Okay.
in addition to using some of the skills and techniques that a mental performance coach can use or should be using. So that's a little piece of that. So how did I get into this? This is a story, and it's a good one, at least I think. So when I was in the ninth grade row, I played football, basketball, and I was told I needed to do a third sport, which at that time for me was track in the spring.
Okay.
I showed up at the track, and everybody shows up at the track for the first time. They all think I played DB, by the way, so I thought I was fast. So I decided to run the 100 as everybody does, and I'm all looking around like, oh yeah, I got this one
Right.
in it. Man, I ran that thing. I'm like, whoa, why are these people faster? Like it was crazy. And so there were like 4 or 5 guys that finished ahead of me. And I said, man, I thought maybe this was something. And then I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing.
Right.
And so the coach comes and he says, okay, top 5 guys, he actually said top 4 guys, y'all going to be my 100 guys and the 200 guys. I'm like, okay, that's not me. And then he was like, 5 through 7, teaching y'all how to do hurdles. I said, what? What say you? Hurdles. What are the supposed to jump over things? And he
As
was
you
like, well,
run.
we're gonna teach you,
Right.
you're gonna run over these things, but you're not jumping. So I learned very quickly in ninth grade, like never played, never ran, how to do hurdles or how to run the hurdles. And so I did the 110s and the 300s in high school, you do.
Okay.
And my first 300-meter race was actually at a crazy place called the Penn Relays. And if you run track,
Very popular.
people know this place.
Yeah.
And so I've never run track. That's my first meet. I didn't realize how big it was or small or whatever. I played sport. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I showed up there. I looked around. I said, you know, you got college and pros, and the whole thing is there. It's an event,
Wow.
and so I ran that first 300, and I fell off the first hurdle, and I ended up getting up and finishing the race,
Right.
not last,
Hmm.
not. I think that's something. So I learned
Yeah.
real quick that there's something about the thing that's up here that
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to not finish last, but more importantly, to actually get up and finish the race.
Right.
And so my coach actually said, man, that was amazing. He used the word, you are mentally tough.
Mm.
And I needed to learn more about whatever that was. So literally that began my journey
Okay.
around how to do this thing. So I've always kind of wanted to do it. It's
Right.
actually my ninth grade, like this is what I'm going to be. And so I started the journey then, actually, but because I fell in this thing, like
That's amazing.
everybody watching, I still got up though. I didn't, like I said, I didn't finish last, which was amazing.
Right.
But I did fall, and luckily I didn't disqualify myself because I'd have fell in the lane. It's crazy. And so I was able to get back up and finish. It happened so early in the race, I think I was just super shocked. And then I was like, I guess my first instinct really was to get up, but that's how I fell myself into wondering more about, well, this mental toughness thing. Like, is it just something I innately had from my parents, from my upbringing, from how I used to be? Like, what was it? Is it something I could learn, do better, get better at it? And so that's when I began my journey around it.
That's good. That's good, man. So in terms of mental performance coaching, what are your top sports that you give coaching to?
Okay. So literally it is golf.
Mm-hmm.
Number
That,
one A.
is that number
Uh,
one?
it's number one A.
Okay.
It's actually if I somebody says Robert sign me up, then on here golf will be one A and only. And
Okay.
then number one, because it's actually a tie literally right now. I have a lot of soccer players.
Okay.
Uh, which is some people really like, yes, a lot of soccer. And most of those clients actually are all professionals. So they're most of them play somewhere Europe.
Okay.
Some college kids here in the States, but mostly European play Americans who play in Europe.
Okay.
So that is the other major space. I also work with our Olympic shooters, our USA shooting team, which is amazing. This is 24. We're in the Olympic cycle.
Yeah, this year
Uh,
is the Olympics, right?
yeah, so
Right.
I have some clients within that space.
So you've been
Uh,
busy.
yeah, I've been busy and will continue to keep moving. But those sports kind of right in there. And then just because of the season we're in, I work with a lot of fellas trying to make it to the NFL. So I do a lot of NFL combine work, a
Okay.
lot of helping players get through the combine, but also through their pro day. So uh, if I don't count them as individual clients yet, it's kind of in a group space.
Mm-hmm.
When the season, meaning March, April ends, then many of them will stay on individually. But that's kind of I see a lot of golfers, a
Right.
lot of soccer. I deal with some individual shooting sports, and then football is definitely in there for the mix.
That's good. Now, how did you get connected? This is the Junior Golf Podcast. How did you get into golf mental performance coaching? Did you play golf, or how did that happen?
Sure. Specifically, I mean, that's just what I tell people literally. I
Mhm.
do golf, but I did not grow up golfing.
Okay.
I didn't get introduced to golf until I met my, at the time, girlfriend, now wife's dad.
Okay.
That was his like first question. Like, you golf? I was like, what is golf? What are you talking about? Like, I don't even know. And
Right.
so he was like, oh, you're going to get some golf clubs before you leave here, young man. This is how you do it. And I'm like, okay. And so I tease people. My first set of golf clubs were Titleist DCI blades. I didn't know what they were. Yes, exactly. They were great golf clubs. So I
Oh
come
yeah.
to learn. But that's how I learned how to play golf with blades, Titleist DCIs, that were given to me from him. So obviously, if he was able to give away a set of blades, Titleist, you kind of have an idea of what kind of golfer he was to begin
Yeah.
with, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got into golf. But my now two older kids, Hayden and Kyle, 16 and 14, son and daughter, play golf. My son started golf first when he was 5 years old.
Wow.
And then he's now 14 and around, we're now 16 with my daughter. So when she was 12 years old is when she started.
But she was late bloomer. Okay.
So, but my son is the one that brought her into golf, which is a cute story for her to tell people. So she's only been, playing tournament golf for 3 years,
Okay.
really.
Okay.
Which I explained to her is still an amazing feat to be where she's at. So,
For sure.
and just, I mean, by the nature of just her being in golf, but also doing this sport, I've always worked with golfers, and golfers are a very protected group of guys.
Right.
And so I get a lot of clients who become, especially Corn Ferry, and my PGA guys, they all know each other, and they all say, go see Robert. Like, somebody knows, send me to Robert. That's how that network works.
Mm.
It's a small one, really, and I'm okay with my little tribal guys.
Yeah.
I know there's some other folks out there that have bigger uh bigger
Network.
clients,
Yeah.
bigger
Big.
bigger
Yeah.
bigger footprint, but um there's something to be said with kind of what I do and why I do it the way that I do, because again, I have 4 kiddos, and so that working at that level, it actually is more work. Not everybody might not understand that, but you're at that level. My professional athletes require, they believe that they have access to you all the
Mm.
time.
Not specific time, but all the time.
All the time.
Okay.
So
That
that's
makes sense.
different. You have to understand that, when working with that population. And so, and many of them understand if they have families and things of the sort, they get it. But especially the Corn Ferry guy, I mean, they're in the midst, of trying to get this thing. And so
To go to that next level.
they're you got to spend a little bit more time with them, and it's a little bit different. So, but that kind of how I got into the golf space, and been working in it for a very long time. And so, one of my first golf clients, I had him in high school. I worked with him all the way through college, and
Mm-hmm.
now he's Corn Ferry. Actually, last year was his first year. He Monday qualified into the Wells Fargo, actually.
Nice.
And
Right in
so
Charlotte.
yeah, so that was a great
That's great.
experience for him. So just trying to get him, get some more of these guaranteed starts on the Corn Ferry, and it'll be on and popping.
Man, that's awesome, man. And I got a few more questions for you, but as you talk, you know, again, I talked about it at the opening of my broadcast that a lot of parents take mental performance coaching for granted. We believe in buying the equipment, we believe in paying for the tournaments, we believe in paying for the coach, but that one piece, because a lot of parents like, man, why my children aren't playing good? Why isn't my junior golfer playing good? And the one missing piece is it could be that mental performance coaching piece. And yes, you have to pay for that. That's
Yeah.
something you have to pay for it. Now, Robert, let me ask you a question. What percentage of golf do you think is the mental part of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I asked my athletes and parents that same question. So I
Hmm.
think I have a really good answer, and it's twofold, but it's really once you have acquired the skills, it doesn't mean that you can't learn to hit a flop shot better or hit the grooves just so perfect. But once you've learned to acquire the skills, and so I'm talking to like elite junior golfers, right?
Right.
They got the skills. They know how to go out to the golf course and hit a golf ball, putt, chip. They know how to do that.
Yeah.
But once you have acquired the skills, then the rest of your game is mental. So if that, then for me, I tell people, then that's about like 90% of the rest of the game is a mental game for you. And if you're not spending, if I always say, if you're spending 100% of your time on just 10% of your game, you're leaving 90% of it to chance. I mean, no business person wants to do that. That's
Right.
bad investment. So, the stuff is not cheap that we give them. The equipment, the time, the energy, the turn, all that stuff, it is not cheap. So,
Correct.
but only still just 10% of what we can get from them once they learn how to master that stuff. And so this is great example of this is people know how much these foresights and Mevos and
Yes.
okay, you could buy one on your own. And the parent literally said to me with the client that I have, their son wanted the foresight.
Right.
I don't talk about how, if you want to know, look it up. It's crazy.
Yeah.
She literally said to him, you're going to keep working with Robert, and until this X, Y, and Z happens, you will not get that. Because she recognizes like that thing is cool and all, but that's
Nice
part of
toy.
that 10%. That's a toy.
Yeah.
We got to work on the 90%. And there's certain things we're going to work on with this particular young man. And we've already been doing it. So he's set up for success. But I find that sometimes to be crazy because a parent will tell me, well, I got to buy the foresight, but I can't pay for what you like. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
No problem. When they're in them tournaments and it's for real, you're going to be like, yeah, look, I needed that mental coaching. So I would say 90% from an elite, once you get to the elite junior level, from there moving forward, it's 90% mental. That's why the professional athletes have mental performance coaches.
Correct.
Because they recognize that they're not going to leave that 90% on the table. I mean, if you process that really is the difference between the 120 on the money list and up.
Right.
Is that their teams of those guys are they have a fully equipped team, is what I usually say. So anytime I'm in that space, I know I can see like they got all of the pieces together so that way they can just compete. And so that's the thing, even with minority golfers coming into this, they don't really understand like these other kids that they're competing with have the full entirety of the team. And
Robert, hey, listen, man, I got chills running up down me because, about 3 or 4 years ago, I started to put John a team together. And so you had your fitness, you got your swing coach, got your mental performance coach, you got all these people, and you need if you want your junior to go to that next level, you got to complete the team.
Got to complete the team. I mean, it's like.
And Robert, here's the caveat.
Excuse me.
Listen, because me and you understand it. You can be frustrated on that course when your junior's playing bad all you want.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, they're probably making mistakes because of something mental. They
Most
probably
of them
got
mistakes. Yeah.
they probably and that's going to be my next question. But they probably got the best swing coach at the country club. They probably got the best equipment money can buy, but they just missing that other 90%. So my next question leads into my next question is, why do you think good players, great good players that are typically good, why do you think they struggle?
Yeah. And I would literally, they do struggle because there's that finite line of becoming good to great.
Yes.
Okay. So it's okay to be good. That's why I said like, that's when you have acquired the skills.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go around and shoot in the 70s being good. You can get that. You can do that.
Right.
But when pressure and the competition ratchets up, you got to become great. And so, because you're competing with other great folks. And so, in order to go from good to great, if you don't have a complete team, it is we're doing a disservice essentially for our junior golfers specifically. Um, and so that's just at the end of the day the truth. So I
You're
can't
right.
spell it out or say it any more clearly, but that usually is the challenge that some of our families have too, is like saying they're going to quote unquote buy into this, but it's not really anything to buy into. A lot of what I do actually is scientific, and I like numbers and math and science. So I try to make sure I'm really walking somebody through a process um, that gives them tangible results.
Yeah. I had a couple of guys that's mentored me in on the way. Um, Mark Burnett out of Houston, out of Dallas, Texas. Um, Ken Stiles out of California. And they all told me, they said, Ro, you can't half, I'm gonna clean it up. You can't half but this. You gotta spend
Yeah,
the money on what's needed. You can't be cheap,
right.
and
Yeah.
you got to spend that money.
Yeah, these are things, it's I won't span my garage or my area that I'm in right now, but
Right.
I mean, it's a constant conversation. We talk about this often,
Sure thing.
and there is that is the grow the game initiative. I love when I was hearing that with the live guys, but we won't go all the way into that. But growing the
Yeah.
game initiative is also about giving resources
Right.
or being able to access those resources too, and recognize like our kids have been very blessed with receiving these resources that are out there, but it's not because they just came by chance. They come because we're out looking and asking and trying to figure out where they are and how to get them.
Hmm. That's right. So, what are some ways, Rob, that that players can increase their mindset?
Okay, so I always start with it's the first thing usually in this process is to have the self-awareness, right? To understand what we just talked about, like I actually need it.
Right.
Once they get there, then it's very simple to kind of teach people how to build these skills. And so often, I'll share it here. I'm okay with giving you the answer. The answer is to understand that the things that you think drive what you feel and what you do.
Mm,
Once you come to that understanding and then self-awareness of like, oh, the things I think actually drive what I feel and do, ultimately impacting performance, because that's
hmm
what happens. Then now we can start building skills around thinking effectively, cleaning up how you think, because
Which leads to playing better.
it leads to playing way better.
Right.
And I'll actually say it actually leads to playing uh, in a way that you feel better about your play.
Okay.
The score sometimes is the score. Like, we just, as Hayden played in a tournament down in Florida. The weather was horrible.
Hmm.
Uh, so the score is what the scores are going to be. And they're what they're going to be. But, can you still walk away from that and say, like, you performed, consistently great throughout that time? And that's what we're looking to do. So that's the first steps, is to make sure that someone has a self-awareness that I
Yeah.
need it. And then once I know that I need it, I just simply, like I said, the goods in it is teaching somebody that the things that you think drive what you feel and what you do, which impacts your performance. So now we can actually work on how you think, your interpretations of events. That's the key.
I love it. I love it it's like these steps have to be taken to be able to perform better. And I know we won't go into too deep on this because I want parents to be able to reach out to you and maybe have a session or do something to that effect. But when juniors make a mistake on the course, junior golfers, let's say, where should their mind go? What should they be thinking about? And I know that's part of the process, so you can just give us the
No,
yeah.
it's an actually interesting one. I'm actually, before I answer, I'm going to ask you this question and we'll see if we get both.
Okay.
So when you're watching JT play, how do you know from watching that he is losing confidence? What about him do you see or like notice?
Body language.
Boom. See, I knew you was gonna say it.
Yeah.
We didn't set this up, y'all.
No.
Okay. But
No.
listen, this
Yeah.
is but it took you a while actually to like as a parent who's observant, seeing what it is. Because even I just shared this, like, so if a kid, our kid hits a shot and we say good shot, and they look at us with like cross-eyed and like and
All the
we're like,
time.
hey, it was you on the green.
Yeah.
But problem is that we don't know what they actually wanted to do with that shot.
Correct.
We don't know if they wanted to hit a certain kind of trajectory, work the ball, hit a certain area of the green, sound a certain way. I don't know. Whatever that was, we didn't know. So we couldn't acknowledge what it is that they did well or not well. That's the challenge. But so I share that with you. So because this is the thing. So we make a mistake. The first thing that changes typically for a kid who's struggling a little bit with this mental space, but also just in general, you see it on TV in every sport, is these things called shoulders go like this. They get hunched over. And I know it's crazy. We get like this. And what ends up happening now, I mean, we could go all the way into the weeds of this with science and all that. But if you're just carrying your golf bag and you do like this, the weight of that bag, right, it gets heavy. You can try it, y'all. I'm just saying, like, go ahead, put it on, and go like this with the bag. You be
Hey,
like,
Rob,
man, this.
I'm laughing because my wife and I, we've been literally talking about this for the last 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
And we
So
and we not and I will talk afterwards, but I'm just gonna give you this right here, okay? So yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So when that happens with our shoulders, the key to trying to when I'm working with a kid around this is I'm always constant on it. Like, no. Keep the shoulders. Because think about it, and once people start hearing this, they'll start to say, oh, yeah, it makes sense. So once your shoulders are like this, I make a mistake, whatever it is, ball in the rough, hit it in the trees, out of bounds, whatever it is that happened, mistake, whatever they deem it as a mistake. Because sometimes we like, that ain't no mistake, bro. That's you good. And they're like, nah, it was terrible. Okay, whatever. So whatever they think it is as a mistake, if they go like this, then we just simply say shoulders, whatever I use all kinds of things with kids.
Right.
So we got to get these shoulders back. Now, people know this, but they just have a hard time with it, and it's okay. Once your shoulders are back, then literally the rest of us is wide open to accept, to receive, to hear, to look, to feel better about whatever's getting ready to happen. Like you could test this with your wife out there, fellas, or you could test it with your husbands, ladies. But if you're getting ready to receive bad news or say something that whatever, you're going to get something happening, if you put your shoulders back and receive it, it's going to feel a lot different. You will be able to assess a lot quicker, be more clear-minded, able to breathe, all the things we teach. So once some shoulders go back, now we can actually accept, is the word I use, whatever is the circumstance. Literally, by just doing boom, okay, because now you're walking into it already ready to accept whatever you're going to see. That's the sign I was sharing of confidence. If you can do that, and that's a trained skill. That's not something we're born with. We're born with this. We born with this. We were like, if you in this country, you was born to say yes sir, no sir. That's how we were raised in our bloodstream. If you want to, somebody say I was born that. No, so you could teach this skill. It's a skill, and it says something not only to you while you're out there, but it says something with elite junior golfers who have coaches watching. It says something to that coach right away, like, oh, okay, they ready to they that ain't nothing to them. They must have had experienced this adversity before. Yeah, they have. So they're able to do that thing and it's okay. So that's that would be what you I know you asked me a roundabout way, but that's the answer of what should they be thinking? That's what they should be thinking. They should be thinking about their shoulders and like how am I approaching? Am I ready to accept? Because you can't get over anything until you actually accept it. So if you accept what happened, where you are, what the circumstances, now you can actually make better decisions and choices and things start to flow a little bit better for you mentally. And so you're not all bottled up and tight. And literally from carrying that bag that now it was 12 pounds, but you do like this, it turn into 14 pounds. That thing is hard to, if you push it, it's the same thing. Like if you push going like this, you good. As soon as you start doing this, that thing become that thing, it's hard.
Hey,
So
hey,
that's
Rob,
what I see.
let me tell you this. When my wife sees this, she's gonna drop on the floor. What you're doing right now, you're getting ready to save a lot of parents and juniors years of headaches
Yeah.
just from the shoulder conversation.
Well, hopefully
The power,
that's
hey Robert, the
power.
power of the shoulder.
Yeah, that's it.
And
It's
so
the
I'm
show.
telling you, watch Rob after this podcast. Watch what I'm telling you. So now, Rob, tournament preparation. What are one or two ways that a junior can prepare going into a tournament mentally?
That's a good one. I mean, there's a lot of tried and trues, but all right. An easy one is this.
Mm-hmm.
If your
Give us
kid,
one because I want people to to
yeah,
to to have to call you for the others, but just give us one.
I'll give you one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the first one that comes right to mind for me, to be honest, is that your kid needs a book, a yardage book.
Okay.
Okay? Um, and so some parents will see this later, but you go to an AJGA or any high level event,
Correct.
you watch the guys playing the pros. I mean, you got to pay attention. College people, they all have
And they're looking at
books.
that book.
Now you would ask yourself, what's in that book? Maybe I should have a book, right? So I always say to help a junior golfer, and
Mm-hmm.
this is the process. It's not like you give them a book and it's gold and everything is amazing. You give them a book, and then you start teaching, walking them through what the book does and how to use the book and all that. But that takes time and experience and practice. So I would say to help get your junior golfer ready for tournament play, they need to have a book. Now, if you're artistic, you can make your own books. If you want to get cheap, you could draw your own books. I mean, you could do a lot of things. Google Earth it, print it off. I don't care, but at least get your kid prepared in that way. It's like this is you're looking at, well, what do I need? Well, that's you need that. That's a tool you need, and so you want to make sure that you have it. So that's what I would say. That one thing to prepare for tournament golf is to have that book. We're getting ready to play this weekend. We have a book. We've looked at the book this week just to familiarize our minds with the course again. We hadn't played it in a while. We did a practice round earlier on. We won't get there tomorrow, So you
Yeah.
got the book. You can go through and look at your markings and all that. So that's the best advice I can give to a junior golf parent here. And then you begin teaching your child how to use the book. There's lots of ways
Right.
yeah, I would work with that. I work with juniors on how to use those books, just from a mere confidence space, right? So that's what we do.
Hey, shout out to my man Scott Fawcett, who
Okay, golf.
yeah, he created a Decade. And y'all, for my parents and juniors that's listening, with Decade, you get 40 books that you can print off a year. That's literally $2,000 worth of yardage books that you get per year. We love Decade. We are we're mastering the strategy of Decade. So shout out to Scott Fawcett out in Texas for creating Decade. A lot of really good PGA Tour players are buying into Decade. So two more questions, Robert. We won't tie you up too long, but let's switch gears for a second. Let's talk about parents. How
Sure.
can what's the parents' role in all of the mental performance stuff?
Sure. I tell parents that they have to be present and accounted for because this helps their language with their junior golfer. So if they are whenever I'm working with a junior golfer specifically, the parents will have access to the things that we're working on because I want them to have the right language. That's the key to their for their junior golfer. So that way it's speaking the same message. I always say for parents, you got to be a part of the team. I'm not that. I feel I'm not that person. I do private practice work and therapy. So a parent wants to drop their kid off and run away and go to the coffee shop below me. No, come on in. Let's
Yeah.
do this together. Right. The
Yeah.
kid is having these mental challenges because of you. Let's keep it honest. So we out
Mhm.
there, our golfers are having problems because of us. So, it's like they looking at us, there you go, Dad.
Yeah, you look. Yeah,
Oh,
why you looking at
like,
me? You hit the shot.
right, right. All of this stuff, I
The
help parents
facial.
understand.
So Robert, I'm in the hat throwing Hall of Fame.
Okay, okay. It's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay. We learned too along the way. I know
right.
now parents, um, I think I shared this with you. I'm gonna write a book one day
Hmm.
about just the ups and downs of parents
It's coming.
watching your golf.
Yes.
This is unlike any other. And I've watched my clients. So for some people don't really understand this. Like when my clients are playing, I know, and so I'm following along, whether we're scrolling and looking or I'm watching literally.
Yes.
And man, this thing y'all see, I don't just crazy. It's stressful.
Yes.
So I gotta learn how to master those emotions that go along with this because we really want our folks that we love to do well. So
Correct.
that's normal.
All
I
day.
mean,
Yeah.
is what it is.
That's
So
good. That's good, Robert. So Rob, as we get ready to wrap up the podcast, man. So uh you've gone through this journey and quite some time with your son, your daughter, and a lot of juniors, Corn Ferry, PGA. Um, what what can you say to parents that's on the edge of getting a mental performance coach, but they just hadn't done it yet? What would you say to them to go ahead and hit that button?
okay. I would say to them because they're all really smart people on here. I already know they do math better than I do, and I love math. I usually look at these things in with math. I told y'all I'm a math and science person, so I look at it in a
Mm-hmm.
math manner. So I'm gonna give y'all a little math easy equation. If what I you have to say to yourself, you are making an investment in your child.
Correct.
I mean, that's what you're doing. And then with that investment, I then ask parents very bluntly that if I then said to you, because what we're actually asking is you're asking yourself, do you want your kid to get 30% scholarship, uh, 45% scholarship, 70% scholarship? Like you tell me where you want them to be.
Keep going.
Right? I want
Yep.
them to get 100. Oh, okay. Well, then you need to go spend 50% of that almost to get them to the 100.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you start looking at tuition and books and all these things, and you start asking yourself these questions. So if I don't know, I like to use a round number, $50,000 it costs to go to college,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that, right? So let's just make
Per
it
year, most places.
per year, right? So let's just easy math. That's
Yeah.
200K that you're hoping somebody will give your kid without you investing, I don't know, even say 20%.
40 grand.
Mm-hmm. See, that sounds a little different to some parents, and that doesn't sit so well. But that's kind of if that that's a I mean, if I told them if you give me 40, I give you 200.
They take that all day.
All day.
Yeah.
So why are we skimping out on our kids, giving them the things that that's where I go with it. So you're out wondering, that's the math. That's usually what I do. And that's even with like doing tournaments and things. And we've talked, like, I try to figure out, like, is this not just worth it, but is this going to add to that percentage, meaning that scholarship percentage that I'm like, that's where those experiences come from. And, you know, the successes and things of the sort. Yes, they got to go shoot numbers, and we know that, but it's also about exposure to opportunities. And so sometimes you have to pay for those exposures to opportunities.
That's correct.
That's what I would share with a parent who's on the, you know, the cusp. And I would oftentimes say, like, if you're thinking about it, you're too late, meaning you should have started. So get started. And then once we get started, it'll, you know, we can catch things up and it'll be great. But, you know, oftentimes in these choices, I understand it's financial, it is expensive. No joke. I mean, I told people I went to Maryland for grad school, but I also went to Johns Hopkins University for grad school. So I'm just saying, y'all talking to somebody that's not like, I mean, it's the same thing. You're going to go to the best doctor you can go to. The best doctor that you can go to does cost money.
Correct. And it costs more money than the regular doctor. You know what I'm saying?
That's okay. And so I also know in my space, as we're just chatting about who I am, you know I'm not for everybody. And that's okay. I will help you get to find somebody maybe that you can afford, but do know that you, just as the old adage says, I mean, I wouldn't do that for my child's health. So I just don't do that. But if that's what you choose to do, that's okay. Because I know you might just want to get something going or get something started. So, but I often think about it in that way.
That's good. And so Robert, as we wrap up, man, how can our listeners reach out to you, find you? Are you on social media? Give us some of your ways to reach you.
Awesome. Easy stuff. I'm at Elite Minds LLC on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me in both those places. I am on Twitter or X at Elite Minds. For those of you who are real fast, I'm sure this might go in something, but I'm also at www.elitemindsllc.com. That is my website. Old school for some folks, but that's where I'm at. You can get at me any of those ways, a DM, something, whichever way. So that's a way to find me. I'm pretty simple. If we get started in talking, my first thing is probably get you into, I have a Facebook group where parents can kind of get into that group and just kind of begin learning a little bit about what I do, but also the mental performance stuff that their junior golfer may need. And then from there, we can have further conversations about paying for services. But that's the way to find me on social. All right.
Man, Robert, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Tell the family, thank the family for me, man, for just letting us borrow you for a few minutes here at the Junior Golf Podcast. Again, it's been great, man, and thank you for all you do, because I felt for the last few years that's the missing piece for juniors to play better. So thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. You guys have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Junior Golf Podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in this topic. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments or on any of our social media networks. See you next week for a new episode